The final 4 players remaining in the 2018 WTA finals were the lowest seeded players at the start of the event. Who will make the final? I'm here to preview and predict the semi-finals in Singapore. Hey guys, welcome back to the tennis vlog. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. We're down to the penultimate event of the WTA season, the WTA finals in Singapore. The round robin stage is behind us and the final 4 players have been decided. It's Elina Svitolina, Kiki, Bertens, Sloane Stephens and Karolina Pliskova. I think it's been a really good round robin tournament. It's been full of very close matches, and even in the straight sets wins, a lot of the time there have been some tight moments and players have really had to think their way through matches. It does make a change to previous years where some players have turned up to just win 11 games all tournaments. It's been close, and it's what these finals should be because it's a contest between the 8 most consistent players of the season. What has also been true of the WTA finals in recent years is that it's been less of a chance for the Grand Slam champions of the year to shine and more of a chance for those lesser accomplished players and players who are still struggling to push through on the major stage to grab their moment in the limelight. The last 3 champions of the event, Agnieszka Radwanska, Dominika Cibulkova and Caroline Wozniacki, were slamless at the time they won the title, so only Sloane Stephens can prevent that from happening again. I'm going to briefly preview and predict the 2 semi-finals we have lined up, starting with number 6 seed Elina Svitolina versus number 8 seed and alternate Kiki Bertens. Bertens was a late entry into the field after top seed Simona Halep was forced to withdraw prior to the round robin stage with injury. Svitolina, who topped the white group, is playing at the event for the 2nd time, having qualified last year. She lost her first 2 matches before beating Simona Halep to end on a high, and Bertens, who finished 2nd in the red group, is here for the first time. So let's take a look at the victories and defeats of both players so far, starting with Svitolina, who actually brings a clean 3-love record into the semis. She has been pushed. She's dropped 2 sets, one of them to Karolina Pliskova, who's also in the semi-finals, and another to Caroline Wozniacki, who could have taken her out of the tournament. But what's been really impressive about Svitolina this tournament is her focus and her ability to fight through, her determination and her will to win. A nice start against Petra Kvitova, who can be a truly lethal lefty but is also very unpredictable. 6-3, 6-3 and straightforward for Svitolina by scoreline there. Pliskova, who was also a semi-finalist last season, was more tricky, and Svitolina negotiated that test in 3 sets, regrouping after the 2nd. But I think the win that Svitolina can take most confidence from is her victory over Caroline Wozniacki in the final group stage match. Things have been so tight at the tournament that Svitolina could have been out of the running after that match. If Wozniacki had won in straight sets, then the defending champion would have been going through and Svitolina would have been going home. And Wozniacki was on the brink of surviving as they went down the wire in that 2nd set. She seemed to be the more solid player at times, but Svitolina kept hanging on to put her under pressure. She was rallying toe-to-toe with her from the baseline, really intense, and she was covering the court very well. Svitolina was serving first in the 2nd set, and Wozniacki kept hanging on to force Svitolina to serve again, but Svitolina kept doing that. She kept looking like she was under pressure but kept holding on, and that put Wozniacki in a sticky situation at 6-5 down. Svitolina qualified for the semi-finals by winning that 2nd set, but impressive from her was the fact that she stayed concentrated, stayed motivated and stayed intense to actually win that match in 3 sets. So 3 good wins for Svitolina, and then looking across the net at Bertens. Bertens was given the opportunity here by Halep, but she hasn't been playing like she has something to prove. She's been playing like she has everything to gain. And an immediate look at those scorelines shows that she was offered another helping hand when Naomi Osaka, who still had the chance to qualify despite losing her 2 previous matches, withdrew from their match when she was 6-3 down. Bertens had had to fight through 3 sets in both her previous matches and lost the 2nd of those to Sloane Stephens, but she can take a lot of positives from them. She really looked like a bit of a deer in the headlights in the 1st set against Angelique Kerber in her opening match, but she stayed calm and regrouped and looked for ways to frustrate Kerber. She was ultimately the better at holding her serve in the final set, despite the fact that both players were struggling with that. And even though she lost to Stephens, you can see that it was very close there and could have gone either way because it was a tie-break set that Stephens won to get a set ahead to open the match. It was a high-quality first set. It was up and down from there, but the 2 of them were closely matched at many points throughout. So confidence-boosting victories for both players heading into the semi-finals, and Svitolina probably looks the stronger player. I would say that she does, but Bertens has really been playing with a good mindset. I think what's also good for Bertens here is the conditions of the court and the pace of the court, because even though it's a hard court, it's playing like a clay court because it's so slow. And Bertens is one player on the WTA tour that you could really call a clay court specialist. Prior to this season, when she won Cincinnati, she had won all her WTA titles on clay courts. Nothing had come away from dirt. She has a game that fits very well to that slower style. She can mix it up a lot. She's very good at enduring throughout the matches. As we've seen with the winners in previous years, this course and these conditions are going to favour a counterpuncher over a more aggressive player, and Bertens fits that category. But the thing with Svitolina is, although she doesn't have a massive weapon, and although she is always the player that seems to get overlooked, she has a game that translates well to all surfaces. She's not the standout player on any surface, but her game fits well on all of them. Interestingly enough, she also defended her premier title in Rome earlier this year, which was on the surface of dirt. Svitolina doesn't tend to mix it up as much as Bertens does. She can come forward to the net, and we've seen her do that this tournament, but she can rally well from the baseline, move her opponents out of position, but also stay consistent. She's faced a wide range of opponents in Singapore. She's faced powerful lefty, Kvitova, big serving Pliskova, and counterpunching Wozniacki, and she has handled all of them. Bertens, meanwhile, was able to take down Kerber, which is great when you look at the angles and the consistency that Kerber is able to come up with. However, she wasn't so successful against Stephens, who, for me, has been the most impressive player so far this tournament. She has a solid all-round game, and Bertens wasn't quite able to match that. If Svitolina is able to maintain consistency, go for her shots off clean ground strokes and sliced forehands alike, then Bertens could be in quite a bit of danger in the semi-finals. Head-to-heads have meant next to nothing at this tournament. Players have been overturning them left, right and centre, but the head-to-head between these two players is 1-1. Bertens won their most recent meeting. That was in the quarterfinals of Cincinnati, which she went on to win, and she beat Svitolina 6-4, 6-3 on that occasion. Interestingly enough, their prior meeting came in 2016 at the WTA Elite Trophy, which is the tournament for that list of players who didn't quite make it to the top 8 in Singapore and play a tournament the week after. But honestly, given the conditions of this tournament and the fact that head-to-heads have meant little to nothing throughout the tournament, I don't think that's going to have much bearing on what happens, apart from to say that it will probably be a close match. Svitolina has been pushed and has been on the brink, and over the past couple of years, Svitolina has been one of the most consistent players outside of Grand Slams on tour. But Grand Slams have been an issue for her. She has struggled at major events, be that for lack of on-court coaching or her inability to handle the expectations she has for herself on a major stage. So when it comes down to the last four, Svitolina might not be able to play as freely as she would like, or maybe she will see this as her opportunity and stay determined as she has proven to be able to be throughout the round-robin stage and rise to the opportunity. Bertens, meanwhile, needs to go out there and stay focused on her own game as she has been doing, give it everything, and play as if she has nothing to lose. Given the game styles and the histories of these two players, I think everything points towards this one being a close match, but I think I'm going to display some confidence in Svitolina, and I'm going to call Elina Svitolina to win this one in 3 sets. And now casting our eye over to the more high-profile clash of number 5 seed Sloane Stephens against number 7 seed Karolina Pliskova. An interesting clash, really, because Stephens is the only Grand Slam champion remaining in the tournament, having won the US Open last year. She's making her debut at the WTA finals because when she won the US Open in 2017, she was basically just coming back from injury that had kept her off the tour for the opening months of the year, and therefore she didn't have enough ranking points to actually get into the WTA finals. Pliskova, meanwhile, still doesn't have a Grand Slam title. She did her best run at a major by going to the final of the 2016 US Open. But funnily enough, despite the fact that Stephens really burst onto the scene as a teenager in 2012, Pliskova has spent more time near the top of the rankings than Stephens has so far. The Czech player hasn't had an outstanding season to date, which is why she only just scraped into the top 8 this year. In fact, Stephens is the only player still present in Singapore to have gone beyond the quarterfinals at a Grand Slam this year in making the final of the French Open. But there is still good reason for this to be a close match. The two have played each other 3 times before and each have got wins. Stephens topped the red group, Pliskova came in second in the white group, and both netted multiple wins to get to this stage. So let's take a look at those paths now. Sloane Stephens, like Elina Svitolina, yet to drop a match heading into the semis. Her first match match was really indicative of where she was headed. She opened against Naomi Osaka, who won the US Open, who's been in great form at times this season. That one really could have gone either way. The two were going toe-to-toe from the baseline. The first two sets were extremely close, but after losing that second set, Stephens just really got down to work and was getting used to the conditions of the court, and she essentially rolled through the final set after going up a break. Given Osaka's recent form, that was a real confidence booster for Stephens, and she looked in a serious mood in Singapore. As we've already looked at, Bertens mixed it up and pushed her in her second match, but she was able to survive that one, and the 6-3, 6-3 scoreline against Kerber is a bit deceptive because at times in that match Stephens was in tight situations, but she has been superb at absolutely focusing on her own game, shrugging off her frustration in this tournament and really moving on and executing the game she wants to play. Some great winners and some great defense in that match to win in straights and ensure that she finished at the top of her group and moved into the last four. And then Karolina Pliskova, who leads the tour in aces struck this year, opened against defending champion Caroline Wozniacki and showed no mercy there. Fell to Svitolina in the second match. Svitolina really feeling the court well, but then a big win for Pliskova to book her spot in the last four with a first win over countrywoman Petra Kvitova. Kvitova not having a great tournament to finish her year off, but for Pliskova to overturn that head-to-head and to stay focused enough to finish that in straight sets, really good from her. At the beginning of this tournament, Sloane Stephens was my pick to triumph because at the WTA finals since 2015, the winner has never been obvious. It's been more obscure and it hasn't been a Grand Slam champion from the previous season. Stephens has played incredibly well at points during the season, just not well enough to net herself a major. She was very close to taking the title against Halep at the French Open, a great mix of aggression and defense and really feeling her game. When she's got into a groove and found conditions that she likes, she really is a force to be reckoned with, and Singapore, the courts here, the conditions here just play into her hands. She likes the slower pace, it gives her more time to get up to that ball and do what she wants with it. Her defense to attack has really been impressive at times this tournament, and really just her defense in general, her ability to get to smashes and balls that are going way out of the court, make her opponent play that extra ball and then manage to neutralize the point. There have been moments between points where she's looked frustrated, but like a champion does, she shut that out once points have begun being played again, and she's been really focused on the tennis at hand. I know the word focus keeps coming up today, but it really has been a case of players focusing on their own game and producing the tennis they want to play. The conditions just match Stephens' game, and she's admitted that herself, and she looks comfortable, so it would be true WTA fashion for Stephens to go crashing out in straight sets to Pliskova right now because the tour is so unpredictable, but she really does look in a very comfortable state. Pliskova, meanwhile, I'm almost surprised to see her here, and it might have something to do with the fact that of the four players remaining, Pliskova is the woman I've seen the least of throughout the tournament so far, but given that the conditions are slower and that Pliskova hits flat and hits hard on the serve, it's not really an atmosphere that would usually favour her game. But you have to hand it to her because this is the second year in a row that it's looked like the conditions won't play to her favour, and yet she's still made the semi-finals. Clearly she's still finding enough precision and consistency and landing her marks enough to do damage. The question is, will she be able to deal with A, the consistency, and B, the determination and the sheer will to win that Stephens has been displaying so far this tournament? Because there have been times when Stephens hasn't been playing as well as she would like, and yet she's gritted her teeth, she's refocused, and she's got on with playing the tennis she knows she should be producing. I feel like Stephens would be quicker to penalise mistakes than Pliskova would. Their head-to-head, if it means anything at all, has Stephens leading with 2 wins to 1, and interestingly enough they did play earlier this year and it was on clay at the Madrid Masters, and Pliskova won that match on the slower surface. A 6-2, 6-3 win for the big server. However, Stephens won their previous 2 meetings. They have played across all 3 surfaces. The first meeting was in 2012 on grass when Stephens was the more famous of the pair and she won pretty comprehensively 6-2, 6-2, and then in Beijing 2015 hard court, Stephens again 6-3, 6-2. Despite the fact she does love these slower conditions, addition, Stephens, who won the US Open obviously on hard courts, is a player that can transfer her form across all surfaces. Pliskova is becoming a bit of a dark horse on these slower surfaces because you look at her style and you wouldn't expect her to excel on the slower surfaces. However, she almost enjoys having that bit of extra time to get up to the ball. She's not the best mover on tour, and it just gives her, I guess, that little bit of extra time to be more consistent. So it would be pretty typical now if me, having said from the beginning that Stephens will win the tournament, Pliskova comes out and wins in straights. I can actually see that happening. But I have been behind Stephens. She does look comfortable. She does look like she's in that frame of mind that we saw at the 2017 US Open, that we've seen previously when she's gone deep into big events, and she's so focused and so relaxed almost, but also has her vision zoned in on the final prize. And I think she's just in that very dangerous bubble that she sometimes goes into, and Pliskova is going to have to play precise and consistent tennis and be very determined during the tight moments in order to come through this one. So given that all three of their previous meetings have been finished in straight sets, despite the fact that I said head-to-head doesn't matter here, I'm going to pick Sloane Stephens to win this one, and I'm going to say that she does it in straight sets. So there it is, 2 semi-finals previewed and predicted. At the end of the day, it could go either way in both clashes. Bertens actually has more top 10 wins than any other player on tour this season. She has 12, and she has been ranked lower and therefore had more opportunities to face these players, but it shows a level of consistency from her that maybe has gone a bit under the radar. And Pliskova as well, you know, a dark horse on these slower surfaces, who would have thought it? So it really is going to be a close semi-finals day in Singapore, I think. Anyway, let me know what you think, what you've thought of the tournament so far, and who you predict to make it through to the final. I shall be back with more videos in the near future. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.